age gap. So it's not only age, but the power distance in Africa is really about age. If someone is older than you by 1 year, you must know. And in some climes and some cultures, you must add brother or sister.
Yeah. Today we are joined by someone who lives and breathes this philosophy, Joyce Daniels. Joyce Daniels is a trailblazer in public speaking, event hosting, and communication coaching. Joyce is no stranger to the spotlight. She has anchored over 1,000 high-profile events, many within the energy sector, and has become a go-to name for elevating messages that matter. As the founder of Talkademy, she's trained and empowered over 1,000 masters of ceremonies across Africa, helping them craft compelling narratives and command any stage. What's your take on the energy in terms of communication?
Some assume that everyone in the room is at par in terms of knowledge, intellect, understanding, experience. So what tends to happen at many energy events is you hear a lot of jargon and industry terms that could be explained when you remember that not everybody in the room is a subject matter expert.
She's the author of 2 essential reads for communicators, Mastery and Before You Speak, Read This, and brings nearly 2 decades of experience to the table, including her time as a senior trainer with Dale Carnegie Associates. Through her signature course, Prepare to Speak, Joyce has coached mid to senior level executives to speak with confidence at board meetings, industry events, interviews, and more, both locally and globally. She's also a recognized member of the Institute of Strategic Management of Nigeria, an associate of Wimbies, a mentor at Whisker, a TEDx speaker, and an advocate for youth empowerment. So get ready for a powerful conversation on the intersection of energy, leadership, and the art of impactful communication.
If you cannot explain it to a 5-year-old, you're still struggling with communication. You may know the application of what you're talking about, but communication is different. It has to be human first for communication to happen. So I ask you, if you're going to speak about drilling oil, how can you use this cup, this mug with water in it to explain?
To drill the oil.
Yes. Some people, and we give it all sorts of derogatory names. We call it ass kissing, blah, 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 But it is respect in our culture. So I ask the question, what does it take from you if in the workplace you have to prostrate? Is it prostrate?
Prostrate, yeah.
Prostrate to greet somebody good morning. What does it take away from you? We have a communication issue, clearly.
So welcome, Joyce Daniels.
Thank you so much.
Queen of Talk.
Yes,
so it's now one word.
It is one name.
Yes.
Joyce Daniels.
So I'm going to go straight into it.
Mm-hmm.
No holding back. Do we in Nigeria have a communication issue or people just don't listen?
We have a communication issue. Clearly, from the top number 1 citizen in the country, I know leadership flows from the top. And I could tell you perhaps why we have some of the communications challenges. First of all, what is communication? Something said, something understood. There has to be a giving and a receiving. So if what is being given verbally or non-verbally is received as same, then that's good communication. But if what is being given is received as different, then something has broken along the way. We might call those things filters. So if you say good morning to me, or you say come here, and then I go there, what broke? Yeah. So if you say, Joyce, go upstairs, but then you go upstairs and you find me downstairs, what happened?
Yeah.
So what was given wasn't received. That's communication. We have a lot of broken communication because what is being said many times is not what is received. And one of the reasons could be what I call biases, filters. If I don't like you, Dami, and you say, hey, Joyce, how you doing? the first thing I think is, why is Dami greeting me?
Why?
Why is he?
there something else?
I didn't hear what you said. I'm going through something else. So even if you said, Joyce, I brought water for you, I may not even hear that you said there was water because I was not expecting water from you, or I don't want your water because there's a filter, there's a bias. So you see, our relationship can affect our bias, which will affect our communication, whether given or received. The underlying fact I was going to talk about that I think affects not only us in Nigeria, but maybe across Africa, is the power distance, age gap. It's not only age, but the power distance in Africa is really about age.
Yes.
Power distance could be about hierarchy, parent-child, boss. But here, it is usually about age. If someone is older than you by 1 year,
you must know.
You must know. You must know. And in some climes and some cultures, you must add brother or sister.
Yeah.
How dare you call your... So you see, the kind of filter that gives rise to is already there, and many of us are born into it. So your question, do we have a communication problem? Yes, because many times we are not able to break down the walls between the generations.
So whose job is it?
It's always the job of the leader.
So is it the job of the communicator? Let's see.
Always.
So the listener has a bias. And say as we're speaking, I have a bias and you don't even know about it, but you communicated right. And you told me, okay, go upstairs, Dami. And I go downstairs. And I did the opposite because maybe I just don't want to listen to you. But you communicated right to me.
No, I did not.
So essentially, if the job is not done, then the communication was wrong.
And it is the job of the communicator to ensure it's received as intended. It's not the job of the listener, except in certain contexts where, say, boss, subordinate, as you're walking away, you've been given an instruction. It is now your responsibility to say, if I heard you correctly, or just to clarify what I heard. Yes. Else, it still remains the primary responsibility of the communicator to ensure that communication happened.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is.
So I can't blame, initially I blame the people that, the listeners sometimes and say, listen, this was clear. What this person said, I understood it.
Context.
And yeah, that's true. And you have a point there because you mentioned some biases.
Yes.
So would you say some biases come from like how people grow up?
Yes.
The understanding of certain words to certain people. So essentially the communicator needs to understand the context of the person they're speaking to be able to communicate right.
And even if you don't understand the context, you can ask. Because we don't want to assume. Assumption remains one of the biggest challenges in communication. Assumption. Thinking you heard because I think you're supposed to know, right? And there are things that cause assumption. One of them is people's CVs, your perceived intellect. Your CV says you went to school in so-and-so, you studied this. So I assume, based on the CV, I guesstimate that you will understand my communication. But we've seen over and over and over, it's not always the case. So the communicator has the responsibility.
But some listeners can find it very demeaning. Like if you now say, do you understand it, and you break it down? Because again, there's sometimes you're in a room where it's top level. You don't want to dumb some things down.
So it's...
so where does that...
It's how it's said.
Okay.
So it's always how it's said. Just so we are clear and everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
That's one way to say it. Because I don't want us to come back, because I understand that sometimes we miss certain details because everybody's under pressure. Just to be clear. You see, you're setting the context to why you are reframing or checking that the other person heard. And if there's been a history of miscommunication, then that right there is a reason. Just because we had this issue last year where after the meeting, we realized not everybody was really on the same page. Let's be sure today that we all are. So please, Dami, what's your takeaway from this? Okay, Joyce? And we're clear. Thank you all so much. How it's said. How?
It's very important.
How is everything? How is everything?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Please do. I'm already on the seat.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. And I remember when I met you the first time, and I learned a lot from you.
Thank you, Dami.
This was, I think, last year.
Yeah.
Late last year.
Feels like longer though.
Yeah, it does. And it was an oil energy conference, that's OTL to be precise.
Yes.
And I know you've been in other companies, other sectors. What's your take on the energy in terms of communication? When you see people speaking on stage for the energy sector, it might be any other conference. Your honest truth in their communication. Do they communicate when you see the audience, when you see people, when you see the way they speak, how they use their words, as you said?
Yeah.
What's your take? Honest take.
There's room for improvement. Some people have been trained. Some people have invested in communication training, so they do better than others. Some assume that everyone in the room is at par in terms of knowledge, intellect, understanding, experience. So what tends to happen at many energy events is you hear a lot of jargon and industry terms that could be explained when you remember that not everybody in the room is a subject matter expert. There are people in the press or from the press that, yes, they might be energy reporters, but sometimes they just need clarity on this SKU that you just said about the OTP. Right? Okay. So it could be better because the energy industry has a lot of stories to tell. The gap between what is done in the energy industry, whether midstream, upstream, downstream, and the people sometimes just needs to be clearer than price of petrol. A lot of people, all they know about the energy industry is petrol price.
Petrol price.
That's all.
They don't know the reason behind it.
No. They don't know almost anything else. They don't know how it translates to almost anything else, including the income of the country. So there is a gap that can be closed.
This brings a lot of, you've answered you've dived into a lot of questions I was going to ask already.
Please ask them so that we're clear, so that we're sure that communication happens for those who are watching and listening.
So, because you're saying, if I hear you right, like a lot of jargons, a lot of industry slangs, as you might put it. But if I want to counter that, I'll tell you that for them to be on stage, maybe they feel that if I don't speak like a professional, I would not be looked at as
an intellectual.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's that balance of...
I can't wait to respond.
Speaking on that crash, that level that it's like, yes, that's not industry, that's not how we speak, that's not, do you understand? And you'd have looked at as if, are you in this industry or not? Or, so how would that work?
There are few industry speakers that remain top of mind in their different aspects or fields or niches, all still within the energy industry. Why? They've learned to communicate in a human form, no matter how technical the subject is. For sake of sake, I don't want to mention names, but or could I mention names?
Please do.
Austin Avuru. Have you heard him speak on stage?
Yes, I have.
Did you enjoy him?
Yes.
Did you remember some of the things he said?
Not off the top now, but I remember taking away. I'm like, I was.
Do you remember how you felt when he spoke? He had presence.
Yes.
What came with presence? I will tell you a few things because it's my job. I can't help myself. I note the speakers who use the tools. He uses stories.
Yes.
He uses personal experiences. He uses real life experiences that make it relatable. He connects to the audience. Then he builds on that and uses facts, figures, numbers, statistics, and co. But the connection must be there first. He will tell you about his days at UNN and how it is translated to what we are doing now. He will tell you about his days at NNPC and how this, that. But what's he doing? He's connecting with the audience. I bet you if he speaks on stage with 5 other people in a panel, or he was one of the 3 keynote speakers at a conference, he's very likely the one other people will remember after 4 weeks or 4 months. And it didn't make him sound any less intelligent. In fact, it reinforced, this guy knows what he's talking about. Because if you cannot explain it to a 5-year-old, you're still struggling with communication. You may know the application of what you're talking about, but communication is different. It has to be human first for communication to happen. Another man is Emeka Ene. He's Oil Serve, I think. I hope I'm not calling it the wrong name.
Okay.
I think it's Oil Serve. Emeka Ene will always relate what's happening in the oil industry to the mundane. He will show you what the relationship is between the energy industry and Gary. And everybody will go,
They understand it.
because they get it. He uses analogies like, he's talking about how the plane takes off and almost everybody in there has been in a plane and has gone through turbulence, and then he relates it to what's happening in the energy industry or in a particular technical area. And guess what? Everybody gets it. Even the experts now go, okay, that's
like
another
that.
way to, makes sense. It reinforces knowledge. It reinforces credibility. It reinforces intellectual capacity. The ability to simplify without insulting intelligence is a skill. It has to be learned and practiced until it becomes. That's why it's a skill. Yes, there's some people we call follow come. They've been like that because maybe their fathers, their mothers, their teachers. But you see, they still learned it in some form. Nobody was born talking. So if you know how to communicate right, it means you learned it somehow. You reinforced. So that's the difference between what I call, as Queen of Talk, I call it conference speak versus communicating. Conference speak is when you're at a conference and you speak like you're supposed to. You know, the inundation of the, shut up.
Everyone gets tired.
Shut up. Everybody's already tired.
Everyone's tired. They'll say
see, even you, you're not even at the conference, you're already tired.
You'll be like,
please, I've heard this before.
That's what
so guess
happens.
what? Nobody wants that. It doesn't make you sound more intelligent. It makes you sound stuck up. So don't do it to those people who are listening.
So, off the top.
Yes.
Three advice for people right now that maybe have a speaking engagement or have a conference or have a panel session. Just 3. Don't give them too much.
Number 1, learn how to use any of these 3 tools.
Okay.
All the 3 advices in number 1.
All right.
Analogies.
Okay.
Stories.
Yes.
That's all.
Don't give them too much.
I'm giving you only 2.
Analogies and
stories. And the more complex or technical your topic, the more important it is to use an analogy. What is an analogy? Using 2 dissimilar things to bring out a similarity. So I ask you, if you're going to speak about drilling oil, how can you use this cup, this mug with water in it to explain?
To drill the oil.
Yes.
I would say the cup and the mug is housing the water, and you want to get out that water. And imagine you have a straw, and it's below, and you want to be able to have it in your mouth. The distance as you take that straw in till you get to the point where you can suck that water into your mouth is essentially the process of the straw going into the water.
You see what I mean? Did it take you 2 minutes?
I was under pressure.
You were under prayer.
Sweating.
Because
Sweating right now,
you had little or no time.
Yes.
But imagine if you had 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah.
the more you get used to using analogies, the better. And I always say that one of the best ways is to pick up any item in your pocket or your bag or your purse or your car and use it to explain that same thing you want to explain. I can ask you, pick up your glasses, and then use that to explain drilling.
I don't want to try.
No, you won't try now. But I guarantee you, if you think hard enough, and maybe if you think with your team, you'll figure it out. Yeah. Somebody will figure it out. Sure. I'll ask you, pick from your dining table something. Just pick one item, pick a fork, and use it to explain drilling, or use it to explain supply chain, or use it to explain. And you see, the more you do it, that's why it's a skill. You practice until you become. That's why it's a skill. Skills happen because you learn a concept, you reinforce with practice, you correct, and you rinse and repeat. That's why it's a skill. When you do it over and over and over and over, you are able to explain almost any phenomenon to almost any audience using almost anything you find right there in the audience. That's for analogies. Stories. Come on.
Amazing. I love this part of the story.
Come on. Tell us anything that might be personal or third party that people can relate to and relate with, and then teach one or two concepts from it. That's all. That's it, yeah. 3 years ago, I was in Port Harcourt. It was about May, and we went into the office of this gentleman called Dami Ajayi. And I remember when we walked into his office, somebody banged the door. And Dami said, that's what I always tell my people. Be careful the way you bang doors, because when you do, you might spoil the door, disturb other people around, cause chaos. And when you need to open that door again, you might have locked it because it's now spoiled. And he said, that's how you treat relationships. Don't bang doors. Close the doors gently. You might need to open them again. Right? The way he used that door banging scenario has reinforced to me now. You see, I just told a story, and I'm using it to teach a concept. Yeah. How many minutes did it take?
You don't need too much language.
Whereas someone would say 6 reasons, or let me tell you 6 things about relationship building in a. Come on, tell us the story first. Yes. You've gotten us reeled in. It's now easier for us to listen to your 6 points. 6 points, yeah. And you see, the story doesn't have to be long. In fact, analogies and stories help you with brevity. They help you shorten the concept. Yes. Instead of explaining with 7 slides as to what's happening with the drill from here to show us a bloody cup and a straw.
That's true.
Yeah.
You've gone into so many of my topics right now. It's like, you know what? I'll still come back to storytelling.
Yes.
Because it's something I want us to speak on.
Please.
On its own. But still on communication. And I asked, because before we came here, I just asked people in general and said, okay, what is it that you deal with in communication? So I can ask as well. And I asked a lot of, for lack of a better word, junior staff. And they said they find it hard, especially when culture comes into play. And you touched on it, right? With maybe the manager. Our culture is totally different. You know, there's a certain respect. There's a certain, this, that. And some don't know how to play around it. A lot of people, to be honest. So how do you communicate? Especially, say, for lack of... just for an example, if the staff feels... the manager is giving them too much work and they can't actively finish it because of the amount of work. Okay, slow down, manager. Let me finish these ones. Something like that. How do people learn to communicate with culture at the back of their mind, especially us in Nigeria?
Number 1, I start with identity of self.
Okay.
Know who you are, what your powers are, and why you are in that place in the first instance. Why are you there? Who are you? Many people don't know. They think they're there to get paid at the end of the month. So the moment you are not clear on who you are, what your powers are, and why you are there, you will never be able to communicate effectively, because Effective communication starts from the place of clarity of self, then of why, of purpose, then of message. So if I am a new staff, new hire, entry level, 26 years old, only had NYSC experience for those in Nigeria, and you're now working with this older boss, 45 years of age, 20 years your senior, 20 years experience, blah, blah, blah. First thing is, who are you and why are you here? Guess what? You might remember while you're doing that deep dive that, oh, I graduated with the first class. I have incredible attention span. I actually pay a lot of attention to detail. I have stamina. I can go, you see, you're reminding yourself of who you are. I would ask you to get that list to 10. Okay. 10 things about you. Okay. Right? That's for starters. If you get it to 30, 40, 50, you become...
Pride.
No,
I'm joking. I'm just joking. I'm joking.
But you see, that's why a lot of people don't do it, because they think it leads to pride. No, it leads to self-awareness. Then you ask yourself, why am I in this organization? Now I know it could be difficult to have long-term dreams, long-term plans, but if you are able to own it, that I'm here because I'm able to contribute my attention to detail, my stamina. You see all those things that are wonderful about you. I'm here to contribute them to this organization to take us to the next level. All of a sudden, or like some people will say, all of a sudden, you don't feel so small anymore. That's what we call confidence. Then you can now say to your boss, with a plan in hand, these are X, Y, Z you want me to achieve. Here is the timetable I've come with. Can this work? What would you want me to put in where? Which one is top priority for this week? Which one should you have between Monday and Wednesday? What do we call that in the workplace? Being proactive. If you're not confident, you can never be proactive. You see the relations now. And you see, if you're not confident, you're not proactive, how would you communicate? Communication is broken by something. When it's not effective, there is a break, there is a bias, there is a filter. In this case, it is a filter of lack of awareness, low self-esteem. I've not even gone to culture yet.
Culture is I was going to ask you the culture.
So you see, I've not even gotten to culture yet. Because regardless of culture,
yourself first.
Self first. Self-awareness, self-esteem, self-clarity, then the understanding of who you are to what it is you're doing. Then comes culture. What does culture demand? Respect. Sometimes we confuse respect with overreaching. Some people, and we give it all sorts of derogatory names. We call it ass kissing, blah, 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 But it is respect in our culture. So I asked the question, what does it take from you if in the workplace you have to prostrate? Is it prostrate?
Prostrate, yeah.
Prostrate to greet somebody good morning. What does it take away from you? It is the person with heightened self-awareness that is more than happy to prostrate. Ebo, morning, sir. Welcome. And for some people who are in the older generation, that's all they want. Yeah. They just want to see that you remember that we are still Nigerians and we still greet with our hands on the floor. What has it taken away from you? Nothing. But the person who is not clear about self is the person who begins to fight culture. And there's this thing they say in management, that culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So you have a strategy that want to be on first name basis here. We are doing this. We are going west. And they go chop your head.
It doesn't work everywhere.
It doesn't work everywhere. And in fact, it puts in, because this is part of what I do, I've been brought into so many organizations across Nigeria to teach effective communication, cross-cultural communication. And we get to some places and they say, here we practice first name basis. And then someone says, please, in the first name basis, you will call me Mrs. this, or you will call me Doctor that.
I've seen that
I
happen.
have been in this organization for 22 years, so I can't see how one new intake of 3 months
NYC
calls
will
me
come and
by
tell me
name.
that.
Meanwhile, policy is written. You see, what culture is eating strategy. Because the culture on the street, which is the bigger set, it's almost impossible to have a subset within that larger set that will thrive. It won't work. At least it won't work across board. It will work amongst certain teams who have some sort of, what do we call it now? What word am I looking for?
Relationship.
Rapport.
Yeah.
Yeah? But outside that team, it may not work. There might be a man here you can call Ikenna, but anybody else from another team has to call him Oga Ike.
Yes.
Because, Ikenna, I'm your mate. Now, wow. Let's see outside. When we meet outside, go call me that Ikenna again. See your mouth. Well,
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that might not even say it, but deep in their
deep
mind,
down.
they're like, then
And
it creates
so now let me ask
resentment.
that question. If deep down, they resent you for
Yes.
calling them by first name because policy, strategy says so, do you really think they will work well with you? No. So it's still a setup for something more, which will show in communication. Because somebody might now communicate so aggressively and you wonder why they're being aggressive toward you. Deep down, and because they come in my name, you and my Pekin are the same age, you they mad.
One day it will come out in some sort.
And it will come out. So they might
Sip out.
smile to you, how you doing? But it will find its way to creep
out,
through
yeah.
through the cracks. So culture is dealt with from the place of awareness. First of all, you're aware that there is such a culture gap. Or the culture provides for some sort of power gap, power distance. So accept it and then improve on what you have accepted. So you walk in and the first thing is, good morning, ma, good morning, sir. Not good morning and wait for people to look at you. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma, because you are aware. You're present. You're also aware of self. You're aware of your role in this place. So culture is usually not the problem. It is the understanding of self and situating yourself in that place that is the bigger issue.
I love you. Perfect. The angle you took, amazing. So I'm going to ask you now.
Yes, please.
So where does executive presence come in this communication? Right? You know, there's a way you have to show up as well to communicate. So where does that come in?
I love it. I'm so excited. I love what I do.
I can tell.
I love what I do. It actually gives me a lot of pleasure when I when I have the opportunity to speak about these things. Your phone is here. Oh, the internet might not let you browse here.
No, it doesn't.
I would have told you to Google the meaning of executive presence, because sometimes people misunderstand what executive presence is.
I would love to know. I'm sure I'm one of them. So I would love to know.
So I will break it down in simple terms. Executive presence is showing up in a way that gives credibility to who you are and what you do. It's not about looking a certain way or sounding a certain way. It is credibility to who I am and what I do. Full stop. What are the elements that can enhance executive presence? Knowledge of the subject matter and the ability to communicate it in a human form, in the way people can touch, feel, accept, and understand. So if you are, say, a CEO or an executive director, an ED, an MD, a GM, and you show up at a podcast or on stage somewhere and you're asked a question and you respond, but people don't understand what you said, that's executive presence gone wrong. Even if you're wearing a suit by Tom Ford. In fact, people will wonder, how you take reach there? Where's simple question they ask him?
You can't get
he no. So executive presence is about lending credibility to what you know and who you are. Regardless, I dare say, of what you wear. Because there's someone else who will sit on the same chair or stand on the same stage wearing a t-shirt and jeans and would speak, and everyone will go, why isn't he the MD? Why isn't she the ED?
True.
Why is it that person who came to speak that didn't know anything? So you see what executive presence is? Lending credibility to who you are and what you know, or at least what you are supposed to know. So I said one of the things that supports executive presence is knowledge of subject matter. Number 2 is how you communicate that knowledge.
Yeah.
Number 3, yes, I will add, is how you look. Because man still looks on the outward and first. So how you look should be context-based, depending on where you're going, or if you have a particular brand, then I would say support and maintain that brand. Yeah.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, so I'll bring you to the energy industry.
Yes, please. Let's go there.
It's male-dominated. And there might be some sort of shift in terms of what this presence we're talking about is. And it might not be just only in the energy industry. So you would hear that this presence is tilted towards being boisterous. And just to be clear, just being male. You know, I know you've explained this, especially in a largely dominated industry. What would be your advice to say someone that maybe is a bit more timid, and you see that when people go, they're you know, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it could be a lady, it could be a timid person. And in terms of that executive presence, do you think they should keep who they are, or they scale up to that ideology? And again, this ideology should be wrong, depending on the context, because it shouldn't be. But from what I see in my industry is it's more, you know, loud, it's more male dominated. So I don't know what your thoughts is.
I would respond using a story in the Bible.
Perfect. Stories.
A young man called David, who's a shepherd boy, was sent to deliver food to his brothers who were soldiers at war. And he got there, and there was this giant across, making a lot of noise, frightening the army. He was not a soldier. He wasn't trained as a soldier. He didn't have the look of a soldier, but he could kill. And so when he said, I could kill that person, guess what people did? They laughed. Like, you know,
Look at you.
Look you now. So is that look serving you? If you say, well, this is how I am, is it serving you? So, well, he stayed persistent until he got to the king. And the first thing the king did was to try and dress him up. And it was after that he realized, no, this doesn't work for me. And they took it off, and he used what he could. But guess what? That was the last time we ever heard he killed with a sling. He dressed up. He became king, and he learned to use the tools of kings. He now went to war using a sword, wearing a shield. Don't kid yourself that because you're timid, you know, this whole thing, let me be who I am. It doesn't work.
Upscale.
You will upscale quickly, especially if you have your eyes on growth and elevation. Then you will learn it. And I'm saying this so passionately because I see a number of people across industries who think because they have some sort of intellect and knowledge, but they are quiet, it will serve them.
It will speak for them.
It will speak for them. It's the world wasn't made by God for your skill to speak for you from behind. That's not how the universe is made. At some point, you will scale up and scale up. So you will learn. You will learn to speak better. You will learn to dress better. You will learn to network. You will learn to communicate. You will learn to lead. Because leadership is a skill that is learned. It's not a talent that people are born with. So you will learn. Else, at some point, your credibility will be questioned and it might cause you to miss out on certain opportunities. And we've seen this happen again and again, where someone has a title or they're AGM something in this company. And because of that title on LinkedIn and some nice photos they may have put up, right?
Some nice photo shoot.
Yeah. Somebody from this other company invites them for an interview. And after interacting, they're like, doesn't add up. Doesn't add up at all. So you see, something was missing. There was a skill up that was missing. There was a scale up that was missing. Somebody felt it was okay just because you show up in certain ways. No, you will scale up. But I would ask first to some people who like to fool themselves.
Yes.
That thing you say you are that you're protecting, is it serving you? Has it opened doors for you? Has it brought promotions? Has it increased the amount of money you can command? Has it put you on platforms for influence? If the answer is yes, great.
It works.
If the answer is no, you know what to do.
Wow. I have no more questions on that. Because that's already... But you know what? I was going to speak on storytelling. Mm-hmm. But before that, I want to do a couple of quick-fire questions.
Okay, please.
Just quick-fire. Should every speaker have a script?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can explain, but let's go quick-fire.
Quick-fire. Is eye contact overrated?
No. It is not overrated.
Can a great speech be made up on the spot?
Yes. Very well.
Slides or no slides?
I always say you should be your slides.
So slides.
So no slides. You.
No slides. Okay,
no,
perfect.
You are the slides.
Okay. So the last one on this, engage and adapt on the fly or stick to the plan?
Engage and adapt.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's also part of the plan.
Yeah, okay.
You should plan to engage and adapt.
Adapt.
Yeah. Plan to
So
engage
both
and
of them
adapt.
essentially.
Yeah.
you no. Okay, but yeah. All right. So I'll go back to storytelling. And
I want to explain my answer to one of those questions. But it's okay,
tell me which one?
What was the first question?
So the first question was, should every speaker have a script?
Yes. Why did I say yes? I've heard a lot of professionals say they don't want to feel like they don't know what they're saying, so they want to speak from their hearts.
Okay.
And I go, the more important it is to you, the more it should be written down. Just do not deliver verbatim, word for word as written. So you can write down your bullet points that would remind you of where you were supposed to be. If it's important, just because we are human, and sometimes we forget our own passwords that we use every day.
I wonder what that is.
I wonder what that is.
Cover face.
Because we forget.
Yeah.
The faintest pencil is always still better than the sharpest brain. Write it down and hold it with you. You see presidents of nations have addresses and they read. There's a reason why. It's so that they don't forget. You see newscasters have their scripts on the teleprompter. There is a reason why, so they don't forget. So who are you? Yeah. And why do you think you should know it all by heart? So no, have a script. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Yes.
So you may not use it,
over-prepared.
but always come over-prepared. Yeah. Yes, back to your question on storytelling.
Is there any other one you want to... You can't... Can a great speech... Okay, you
that one is clear.
Slides or no slides?
Okay, about slides. It depends on what the slides are supposed to do. Sometimes slides are a deterrent from the key message, which is you, the person. I always say...
I'm a fan of no slides.
You are the message.
Yes.
People believe you before your slides. And if you've learned the art of using analogies, telling stories, executive presence, being human in your communication, then you may not need slides. But if you do need a visual representation of the facts or details you're sharing, then you can.
Yes.
You can also learn that sometimes what you need might be a prop, not slides. Sometimes all you need to do is bring that mug or bring the models to show this. Sometimes people connect more with things they can touch on stage than having them on slides. You see sometimes some people keep things under the table, under the chairs of participants and say, just please, if you just reach, you bring it out and go, that's what we're trying to explain. It might not be slides, it might be a picture of the item that is being discussed. It might be, and sometimes they play a video, which yes, you say slides, but so be careful.
Be careful.
Be careful.
Amazing. I'm going to ask something that it's a bit off topic, but I just feel like asking it.
Okay.
What drew you into public speaking?
Let me look for a song. Is there any songs I can tell?
What drew you into what you love so much like this?
I was born a talker.
Okay.
I've been on stage all my life. The first time I was a master of ceremonies, I was 10.
Oof.
It was the first ladies' children's concert by Mariam Babangida in Abuja in May 1992. So I'd always been on stage.
You've calculated your age.
Yeah, so duh.
I'm just saying.
It's age ain't nothing but a number. So I've always been on stage. I'd always been the one who would be in a debate, who would speak on behalf of my siblings. I'm number 7 of 9, but I'm the one who my older ones would say, go and ask daddy for. Go and tell my mommy that. So I was that child. I got a job after NYSC. I was doing quite well as a business development manager in a fire safety company. But my restlessness kept saying, whatever I would succeed at is already in me. So it's either you speak, you dance, you sing, you act, all the things that I know how to do. Okay. But I chose to speak because I realized that one came easiest to me. I gave in to my desire to be known. At an event, if I was master of ceremonies, I'm the one face you will remember. And I like it. Yeah. And so I stayed. But that day, November 11, 2007, that I decided to be a full-time MC, I also knew that I would have the opportunity to train people to speak on stage. I also knew, because that same November, I trained senior staff of NMPC in public speaking and presentation skills. And I knew it is something I enjoyed. I loved the transformation I saw. I heard someone say she was a few months away from retirement. And she said, Joyce, I've attended trainings around the world. Yours was so easy to relate to. That was my first ever training. And I said, you're sitting on gold. Why are you looking for something else? And I've stayed. It's 18 years. I've loved it. I'm grateful for the transformation that I see happen. Some people think speaking is about delivering a speech. No, it's about adding power to your essence. If you have a message that must be translated or transmitted to the world, it's by speaking. Chimamanda Adichie, is she a writer or is she a speaker? We don't even know anymore. Because unlike many other writers, the moment she began to speak, her power multiplied. Speaking is a multiplier of power, of authority. And it questions everything. That is why sometimes you wonder, you have a president or a governor speak and people go, waiting be this. Because speaking is supposed to multiply power.